So I wanted to continue Module 21 and give you an example of how to use StatCrunch for all of this relevant section. And you can see here are the exact buttons to click, but I wanted to go through that and show you what it looks like. So maybe let me hide the answer, so you can look at me instead. Alright, so a Fox News poll reports that 20% of voters is tattooed. Are tattooed? Has the percent changed this year? 2014 Fox News poll, so it's quite a while ago now. So a survey of 1,000 voters, 22.5% are tattooed. And so we're going to run a hypothesis test. Run is the common verb we use to describe it. To run the test to decide if has that changed. So just want to make sure. So we're going to do that on our own now. So I have StatCrunch open here. And so it says we go to Stat. Proportions, that's what we're studying right now. Z-stats is unfortunately, we're using z-scores for these, but this z is a little different. This is working with means, and we're going to kind of learn that next. We're going to skip over it, turns out, because there's some issues with it. So thankfully we don't learn it because we don't really use it in real life, but we're going to do proportion. Some of the stuff we do, you've learned regression. ANOVA is one of the last modules, and goodness of fit. So there are, this is Unit 10, this is Unit 11, this is Unit 9, and we're learning proportion. So you're going to learn about half of all those options there. So just to backtrack, stat, proportion stats, one sample with summary. One sample because we only took one sample of data. Turns out we'll later be able to take two. We'll at least learn somewhere about that. And then summary means, are you just plugging in the final answers, or do you have an actual set of data? And let me zoom in case you can't see that well. So proportions, we're studying proportions, one sample with summary. Okay, so the one sample proportion summary menu screen came up. So number of observations. So that is this 1,000 here. Okay, but the rest doesn't fill in like we normally give you the information. So there are two different proportions here, but there's not a spot for those two exactly. So 20% was the Fox News poll. We're going to assume that that kind of was the right answer, even though it was a single poll, and so that is going to be our P, our population value. We're assuming it's still 20%. So we're trusting that survey and asking, is it still 20%? So the 22.5 goes here, but it actually wants the number of successes. So it doesn't want the actual value of the percentage. And so to get that, let me see if I can draw a little bit on here. Can't think of where to draw. So I'm just going to tell you, it's a very short calculation. So number of successes is actually a familiar calculation. It's n times specifically p hat. And I think it's easier to just understand that, though. You can write that down as a formula. If 22.5% of people were tattooed out of 1,000, how many actual people? So take 22.5%. So take 22.5%, this is p hat, and multiply it back by the 1,000, you're finding 22.5% of, which means multiply in math, 22.5% of 1,000 is 225. You can see 225, I've recently done this problem. So 225 out of 1,000. we have a way to check if we did it right, so don't even stress too much that you played everything correctly. You don't need to pick anything else here. I'm going to pick this p-value plot just so I can get a picture, but it's not required. And then we need to decide the hypotheses. So point 2, notice it copy-pasted it down here for us. It filled in, like if it was something else, it would have filled in. We have our null and alternative hypotheses. StatCrunch is set up very well to how we learn statistics. We have to pick our alternative hypothesis. So should that be not equal to, greater than, or less than? Well, it shouldn't be shouldn't be less than because it went up. So it could be greater than or not equal to. So it says, has this percentage changed? Changed, the best hypothesis alternative is not equal to. There. Okay, so we click compute. We have a way to check a little bit if we did it right. This sample proportion is p hat should agree with the p hat we were given. Almost every problem we're going to give you that's more natural to read gives you p hat as a percentage. Let's do that one quick calculation. So you do that one thing to avoid doing anything else. I think it's worth it. That's my recommendation. It calculated the standard error for us, which we don't really need. It also calculated what's called the z-stat. So the z-statistic, we brought it up, parameter versus statistic. Our class is actually called statistics with a capital S because it's the study of lowercase statistics, which are sample values. So the whole real part of statistics is taking samples and studying them to make guesses about populations. But what's the number we're here for, as long as you set all this up right? So the z-score is around 2, right? That's roughly our cutoff range of like a normal versus not normal value, but we're here for the p-value. That's the value that we are really here for. So 0.0481. So you should very clearly know what to do with p-values. The rest, it's good if you understand the z-score. Standard error, not as much. And the rest is what you inputted. Okay, I'm going to make myself small again. Okay, so you can see that's exactly what's in your notes. I guess you could see that the whole time. I don't know why whatever. I don't know why I covered it up. If you printed it out, it's in front of you. Okay, so that is the way you get to there in StatCrunch. What if you instead wanted to do, I'm not going to do the rest of the question, I don't think, but what if you wanted to do instead a confidence interval for the same type of problem? So you had 22.5% of people out of 1,000, so 225 out of 1,000 is 22.5%. What if you just wanted a confidence interval? So you click this button for confidence interval, you plug in whatever confidence level, automatically pre-filled to 0.95 because that's most common. And don't just leave this here. I'm actually not sure what it is. It's the formula. That I know. I'm not sure which one is which. I've always just left it. Right, and then it gives you a confidence interval, right? And the lower limit and the upper limit are the final answer. You should verify that the sample proportion p hat is what you were expecting. So that is how to get here in StatCrunch. One last reminder, stat, proportion stats. We're just taking one sample with summary, and it should be asking you things that make sense. If you don't have enough information, you're making it up, you're in the wrong area. And if you have too much information and it didn't show up here, you might have not found the right one either. So just, I like that. It helps remind you of the right things to find. Right, so that is it. This short video here, how to use StatCrunch for proportions, confidence intervals, and hypothesis tests.